We come together to recognize what we already are, to shift our focus from being an individual with a name and a social security number, being a separate person, to opening the mind and softening the heart and allowing that which already knows that we are spirit, we are pure beingness, to come forward. To emerge from the background, because the knowing of what we are is always here. We could not have an experience of being individual without the spiritual mind to conjure that experience. But at first, that remains in the background. So sometimes Ken Wapnick, or these days Rupert Spira, talks about the movie screen, how the images of the film or the video are projected onto the screen, but the screen is always there. And just allow yourself to breathe a sigh of relief, to exhale, to not know how to allow the background to become the foreground, but to trust and flow with your inner knowing. And if there's a good feeling of feeling goodness, let's savor that. We're together. This is a safe space. This is a Holy Spirit blessed gathering, sometimes called satsang, a community of spirit. I don't even want to say spiritual seekers, because there's no need for seeking right now. We're found. We are found. Just letting the body loosen up and soften, so that the body is now used by spirit for the purpose of awakening, using the forgiveness practice in A Course in Miracles. And everything quiets down. And we're suffused with kindness. Like there's a kind, gentle being gazing upon us, smiling. And without using your eyes, allow yourself to make contact the way a baby would with its mother. But I'm suggesting that we do that in a full-bodied way, not just with the eyes. And allow God to love us through the Holy Spirit, through Jesus, through your inner teacher, your intuition. Allow this beautiful, loving, understanding kind acceptance buoy you up, permeate you. Maybe a little smile comes to your lips. Maybe the tension in your face, your forehead, your jaw eases away. We're here to gain familiarity with this beautiful feeling, which is always available. You could call it the still small voice within. We've requested to recognize what we already are, and our prayer is answered. You may not feel anything change or be different, and that's okay. Or you may start to connect with subtler feelings, maybe a floating sensation that could easily be missed. Yet, if you tap into it, it feels good, like your breath is dancing inside you. And then you might find that you're dancing with your breath, which is also outside you. You might feel like you're floating on water. There might be a hum. That we're enveloped, in an om. You might get tingles or waves of coolness. You might feel warmth. A thought might come to you, a loving thought. Any other thought can be duly noted and just let it move along. There is an inner beauty in you. And that beauty is your strength. It is grace. It is love. It is joy. To have a recognition that you are beautiful through and through, just simply as a fact. And to allow that beauty to be felt and acknowledged. So today I was guided to lesson 126 in the workbook. And sometimes I doubt myself and, I'm like, it's so random. Why lesson 126? Am I supposed to know something that I don't know? And and then I went to Audible, which is where I have the text and the workbook for A Course in Miracles, before the Foundation for Inner Peace made their app, which, reads the course aloud and has other fun little things that it does. Before that, I already had it on Audible. I went to Audible and I just went to the workbook and it was on 126. that's pretty wild. To me, that was wild. That was just like confirmation, like, Amy, you do not have to know what you're doing. Just let the guidance come through. I was like, wow, that's something. 126 it is. And I thought it would be really nice if each of us could read a paragraph. There are 11 paragraphs. And my suggestion is that the first read through, we just soak in the teaching like a sponge. Don't even try to understand. Just be here to understand the light language. And then we'll do a second reading and we'll see what happens with the second reading, whether we want to break it out a bit. There's a meditation in here and we can do that meditation. Typically, Jesus gives us the ego version of what's going on first in the text and the workbook. He often gives us the ego version, and he does not always tell us, I'm going to give you the ego version now. Sometimes he even just weaves back and forth between Holy Spirit and ego, sentence by sentence, which can feel very confusing, but I trust that that's a good disruptor so that the ego doesn't take over in studying A Course in Miracles, which, is not really helpful. So I'll just give you that orientation that the first part of this lesson is probably Jesus describing how we typically are and then giving us a correction. I'll begin. Lesson 126. All that I give is given to myself. And the reason I was drawn to it is that we've been talking about how giving and receiving is the same, and giving is receiving. And for me, a very important part is receiving is giving. And we cannot give if we do not know how to receive, if we do not soften and open to receive, if we do not pause and slow down just for an instant to receive. Receiving is crucial to giving. Without receiving, we haven't completed the circle of giving. So for me, that's a missing piece that it's important for us as course students and also just regular people to learn how to receive, because that goes along with the ability to ask for help, to have humility, to be a recovering know-it-all. I think Dove Fishman once told me we are all recovering know-it-alls. And I found that amusing. So yes. And then the idea, and Jesus says this somewhere in the course, at least once, that this course is self-serving. The reason to do it is because it will make me feel better, me and you. So all that I give is given to myself is quite the motivator. Nothing's being taken away. We're getting what we're giving. Today's idea, completely alien to the ego and the thinking of the world, is crucial to the thought reversal that this course will bring about. If you believed this statement, all that I give is given to myself, there would be no problem in complete forgiveness, certainty of goal, and sure direction. You would understand the means by which salvation comes to you and would not hesitate to use it now. Vicky, would you like to read?
Let us consider what you do believe in place of this idea. It seems to you that other people are apart from you and able to behave in ways which have no bearing on your thoughts, nor yours on theirs. Therefore, your attitudes have no effect on them, and their appeals for help are not in any way related to your own. You further think that they can sin without affecting your perception of yourself, while you can judge their sin and yet remain apart from condemnation and at peace.
Thank you.
Sure.
John, would you like to read?
When you forgive a sin, there is no gain to you directly. You give charity to one unworthy, merely to point out that you are better. on a higher plane than he whom you forgive. He has not earned your charitable tolerance, which you bestow on one unworthy of the gift, because his sins have lowered him beneath a true equality with you. He has no claim on your forgiveness. It holds out a gift to him, but hardly to yourself.
Thank you.
Ego.
Gilda.
This is forgiveness, basically unsound, a charitable whim, benevolent yet undeserved, a gift bestowed at times, at other times withheld. Unmerited, withholding is just, nor is it fair that you should suffer when it is withheld. The sin that you forgive is not your own. Someone apart from you committed it. And if you then are gracious unto him by giving him what he does not deserve, the gift is no more yours than was his sin.
Rico.
If this be true, forgiveness has no grounds on which to rest dependably and sure. It is an eccentricity in which you sometimes choose to give indulgently an undeserved reprieve. Yet it remains your right to let the sinner not escape the justified repayment for his sin. Think you the Lord of heaven would allow the world's salvation to depend on this? Would not his care for you be small indeed if your salvation rested on a whim?
Thank you. Doreen, would you like to read?
You do not understand forgiveness. As you see it, it is but a check upon overt attack without requiring correction in your mind. It cannot give you peace as you perceive it. It is not a means for your release from what you see in someone other than yourself. It has no power to restore your unity with him to your awareness. It is not what God intended it to be for you.
Thank you. Don, would you like to read?
Not having given him the gift he asks of you, you cannot recognize his gifts and think he has not given them to you. Yet would he ask you for your gift unless it was for you? Could he be satisfied with empty gestures and evaluate such petty gifts as worthy of his son? Salvation is a better gift than this, and true forgiveness, as the means by which it is attained, must heal the mind that gives, for giving is receiving. What remains as unreceived has not been given, but what has been given must have been received.
Thank you. Eric.
Today we try to understand the truth that giver and receiver are the same. You will need help to make this meaningful because it is so alien to the thought to which you are accustomed, the thoughts which you are accustomed. But the help you need is there. Give him your faith today and ask him that he share your practicing in truth today. And if you only catch a tiny glimpse of the release that lies in the idea we practice for today, this is a day of glory for the world.
Thank you. Victoria?
Give 15 minutes twice today to the attempt to understand today's idea. It is the thought by which forgiveness takes its proper place in your priorities. It is the thought that will release your mind from every bar to what forgiveness means and let you realize its worth to you.
Do you want to read another one? That was a shorty.
Okay. In silence, close your eyes upon the world that does not understand forgiveness, and seek sanctuary in the quiet place where thoughts are changed and false beliefs laid by. Repeat today's idea and ask for help in understanding what it really means. Be willing to be taught. Be glad to hear the voice of truth and healing speak to you, and you will understand the words he speaks and recognize he speaks your words to you.
Thank you. Rick?
As often as you can, remind yourself you have a goal today, an aim which makes this day of special value to yourself and all your brothers. Do not let your mind forget this goal for long, but tell yourself, all that I give is given to myself. The help I need to learn that this is true is with me now, and I will trust in him.
Little more.
Then spend a quiet moment opening your mind to his correction and his love. And what you hear of him, you will believe, for what he gives will be received by you.
Thank you. Okay. Let's go full circle and pay more attention to the words now. Lesson 126. All that I give is given to myself. I just take my time with it and kind of drink it in. I'm not trying to think it through. Somehow I linger, and then something feels like a click or something, and then I move on. This is how I read the course. It can take forever. It doesn't matter, because any sentence, any paragraph, any lesson, any portion of the text, any practice that we do with any brother, we can have a full awakening if we're fully present and completely honest and sincere. So I'll let somebody else read the first one because I read it before. So Arthur, are you able to read?
Today's idea, completely alien to the ego and the thinking of the world, is crucial to the thought reversal that this course will bring about. If you believe this statement, there would be no problem. In complete forgiveness, certainty of goal, and sure direction, you would understand the means by which salvation comes to you and would not hesitate to use it now.
Okay, so let's break this out. This idea that all that I give is given to myself is completely alien to the ego, who thinks when we give something away, we lose something. You have more, I gave it to you, I have less. And this is how we've been operating. Now, of course, if you're a long-term course student and you feel like you've been catching on, then I support you in that. You've been catching on. It's just that we want to remain honest. That's all. So all that I give is given to myself, which is totally alien to the ego and the thinking of the world, the way the world does commerce and everything else, its power structure, etc., is crucial to the thought reversal that this course will bring about. A Course in Miracles is reversing everything that we have believed in, everything that we take for granted as real and true. The course is reversing all of that. And the process is by undoing, we're unlearning what we have taught ourselves. So first, we're finding out that we've taught ourselves something. We haven't realized that. That's been unconscious. Once we're willing to go with Jesus on this idea that everything here that we see outside, all the externals that we think happen to us, and then even the personal self, that we've taught ourselves that this is true and real, that just starts to loosen your entire belief structure. And so Jesus says, if you believe this statement that all I give is given to myself, what I give away increases what I have, there would be no problem in complete forgiveness. Forgiveness is the undoing process. It's the same as the atonement, which in A Course in Miracles is the correction to the mistaken belief that we've separated from God. There would be no problem in complete forgiveness, certainty of goal. So we would be certain, we would feel safe, we would trust completely that following Jesus is going to reestablish our sense of what is real and true, is going to provide sanity that has been lacking in an insane thought system and its manifestation, an insane physical world. And if we believe this statement, all that I give is given to myself, we would feel sure direction. We wouldn't self-doubt. We wouldn't suffer from the resistance that keeps us from just reading A Course in Miracles and having it be, boop, I get it. If we believed all that I give is given to myself, we would understand the means by which salvation comes to us, the means by which we're saved, and we would not hesitate to use it now. Well, this is the means, the teaching in A Course in Miracles, the explanation in the text of the metaphysics, and then the actual practical application, the practice in the workbook. This is the means. The goal is awakening from the dream and becoming aware that we have been dreaming. And the method is the forgiveness practice, forgiving every belief, every interpretation, every opinion, every understanding that we've held to the Holy Spirit. Everything. Giving everything that we love and everything that we hate, everything that we fear, everything that we desire, everything to the Holy Spirit. And we do that incrementally. So in the beginning, little by little with specifics. And as we are marinating in the Course and developing trust, then we're willing to give more and more of what has seemingly been our security and our safety and our personal foundations, whatever they are. You know, for some people, it's having money in the bank. For other people, it's a particular relationship, a passion, whatever it is that keeps us replacing Jesus and the Holy Spirit and God with what the Course calls idols, substitutes. There's a section called the substitute reality. Everything here is a substitute. And that's okay. Jesus is not passing judgment on us about that. He's offering us compassion and a way out of a dualistic world in which we have thought, I can only be right or wrong. Things can only be good or bad, black or white, on and on. And there's another way. Yeah, so just let yourself feel into, honestly, this idea that all that you give is given to yourself. Drink this in and just see whether it feels right or whether it makes sense or not, just to be present with it instead of reading it and just moving along. And it can feel very right, because if you think of songs, I listen to a song, some music, I love it. I want to share it with somebody. I play it for you and you enjoy it and I enjoy it even more. So that's one example of all that I give is given to myself. It works really well with ideas, sharing, not just concrete things. Okay. So then the second paragraph, does anyone want to read? Don?
Okay. Let us consider what you do believe in place of this idea. It seems to you that other people are apart from you and able to behave in ways which have no bearing on your thoughts, nor yours on theirs. Therefore, your attitudes have no effect on them, and their appeals for help are not in any way related to your own. You further think that they can sin without affecting your perception of yourself. While you can judge their sin and yet remain apart from condemnation and at peace.
Now, just be honest with yourself and see if this rings true for you. It's not radical. He really is just describing the way that we think and the way that we relate with other people. So let's look at this a moment. We're considering what we believe in place of the idea that all I give is given to myself. It seems to us that other people are apart from us. Of course it does. We might be willing at this stage in our spiritual unfolding to realize and live from a better understanding, which is that we are all streaming from the same mind. All the shapes and forms, you and you and you and you and me, we are all streaming from the same mind. Consciousness, or the inner spark, the light, is what is then manifesting in form. But if you reverse the process and undo all the dense layers of the physical world and identification with your own body, you get back to the inner light, which is also called the memory of God within us, which is also called the Holy Spirit, which is also Jesus, the manifestation of the Holy Spirit, who tells us early in the course, we are exactly the same as him. We are peers, but at this point in time, we would do well to obey him, by which he means simply follow him, follow his advice, because he knows better than we do, that's all. But he says awe is reserved for God, that he's not higher than us or better than us, Jesus. He's just discovered something that we're still in the process of discovering, which is this inner light. I'll just stick with this metaphor of light because it's so useful and it's throughout the entire course. And when we've done the little exercise that was given me, find the origin of your smile and you will find your source. My experience is, and we can do it very quickly in this moment, that you can do it with your eyes closed or open if you're driving, that if you explore and investigate your own smile, very quickly it becomes clear that it's not actually your lips or your jaw or your tongue or your mouth that is generating the smile. The smile is felt in your face, but if you did not have a face, you could still trace where this upturned happy energy arises from, and just follow it within yourself. Right now, for me, it's kind of widening through my throat area. And if I breathe into that area consciously, then I begin to feel like Will Johnson calls it a shimmer, a kind of tingling, humming sort of a sensation in the front of my throat, but also the back of my neck. And then that moves through my shoulders. And also my upper chest feels like it is lengthening up and kind of radiating forward. And again, I just pay attention to my breath. I consciously breathe through that area because I'm interested in experiencing myself three-dimensionally rather than just as something that happens in the front of me. It's a kind of happy feeling, and it's a childlike feeling. There's an innocence in this feeling, and it goes deeper. It starts to be felt more deeply in the chest, through the rib cage. I'm sure this is universal, that anyone who starts to play with, find the origin of your smile, and you will find your source, can have a similar experience. We're all having a very similar experience, actually, even though we each have a unique, individualized curriculum. We all have our own people that we interact with, and, you know, the location in which we find ourselves. At the same time, there's only so much that anybody ever feels, you know, whether it's good or bad. You know, in other words, when we're sick, you can get a fever, you can sweat, you can get the chills, you can throw up, you can get aches and pains, you could get a sharp pain, you could get an achy pain. But when you think about it, everybody is feeling just about the same stuff. You could get a burning sensation. Well, it's the same thing with more positive energy. You can get a hum, you can have a visual experience of light, you can tingle. And the more you pay attention to this, the more available this language of energy and light emerges as the deeper wisdom coming through A Course in Miracles. And other paths too. I've been interested in Tibetan Buddhism, and Tibetan Buddhism works with the body a lot. It does all kinds of stuff where you feel similar sensations, or with yoga or Tai Chi or Qigong, or, you know, so many different cultures. Sound, working with the didgeridoo, you know, the Australian Aborigines, that long instrument that kind of bellows and hums. Yeah. What I'm inviting you into is recognizing a language within yourself that was with you before words. The Course says words are but symbols of symbols twice removed from reality. And we're going to use them for now and as for long as they make sense. It's perfectly okay to use words. And I love words and I love wordplay. And there's more. There's more than words. And we all know that because we read each other's body language all the time. And now I'm suggesting that you become more well acquainted with your own inner body language, which will help connect you with spiritual language. Okay, so paragraph 2 simply tells us that we're judging others, and we think that we're exempt from that judgment because it's about them and not us. And we're wrong about that. I'm just checking the time because I'd like us to do this meditation. So in order to do that, I'm just going to say that paragraph 3 and 4 also continue to point out how we think we're benevolent, when we forgive somebody, but really we're feeling like, we know they did something wrong, but we'll let it go. And it's just different ways that Jesus is describing to us how what we call forgiveness is not really forgiving. It's really judgment. And it's separating. It keeps us separate. And to be honest with ourselves about this is looking at the ego with Jesus, is to listen to what he's saying, consider it, and realize that is what I do without beating myself up for it or criticizing myself or protesting and, claiming, no, I don't. Yes, this is how the ego functions. And the clearer we get about that, the more efficient the forgiveness practice is, the more quickly we are undone. Is that making sense? Okay. Yes, Rico.
Yes, thank you, Amy. I wanted to ask you, is the forgiveness, because I'm a novice, is the forgiveness that the Course of Miracles eventually leads to us? Is it that you accept the fact that it never really happened?
That's the metaphysics.
Okay.
To me, forgiveness in A Course in Miracles takes us up the ladder back to the gates of heaven, to use metaphorical language that the Course uses, and we start to encounter a very different mind as we move from basing the way we see the world on the ego's information, and we start to have these shifts in perception where now we're taking direction from Jesus. We're climbing back up the ladder to heaven. And as we get higher, we start to live from the happy dream. And the happy dream is a mental state, not a brain state, beyond the body, a mental state of inner peace. And the forgiveness practice is having us cultivate that change of mind. We continually change our teacher away from the ego to the Holy Spirit and start living more in a state of peace, the happy dream. When we get above that into what the Course calls the real world, Jesus explains that you cannot maintain a body very long once you're in the real world. Whatever that is, it's an ineffable state, so close to God mind that God lifts us back from there. So for me, the forgiveness practice takes us sort of into the happy dream and then establishes us in the happy dream. And that is a huge journey to first dip our toe and then jump back and then start to leave our foot in the water of the Holy Spirit's thought system longer. And then something will distract us and we'll feel like, oh, and life becomes very real and real in quotations. And then we feel more motivated than ever. Instead of the workbook being a chore where it says 5 times a day, give me 3 minutes, and it feels like a chore and we can't remember, it starts to feel like something we want to do. And at some point in the workbook, he says, now you're looking forward, to spending time with the Holy Spirit, and the rest of the hour doesn't matter. Only your time with Spirit matters. So that's how I see the forgiveness practice. The full awakening is beyond. There's no forgiveness anymore.
There's only love then?
Yeah, and that love is beyond anything that we can even comprehend in this limited meat suit that we have devised as a a crazy protection from God. That's what the ego tells us. Thanks for the question, Rico. Questions are helpful.
Vision. Thank you.
I'm glad that made some sense.
A lot of sense, not visual, beyond words, actually, but thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, mostly it's, ask a question and see if the reply feels right. If something feels right, then there's been an increased comprehension. And that's another way of describing what is happening. Just an increased comprehension, not an ego understanding, not an analysis. It's a rising above the battlefield. Yes, Vicky.
Sorry, I couldn't hear it. I just wanted to ask you something about, so when we give, we receive, in the sense of when we're loving and we're kind to someone, and they may not be loving and kind, their actions or words might not be loving and kind to us, but when we're being loving and kind in a true sense, that love that we're giving is coming from within. And so at the same time we're giving it, it's within us. And so we're receiving it. It's just there, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I like how you put that. And also your tone of voice. For me, your tone of voice was loving and kind. It was, your voice was demonstrating that vibration of loving kindness. Yeah, we have to just check ourselves and see, am I being nice? Because I think that's what A Course in Miracles is telling me to do. Or am I tuning into guidance and allowing that loving kindness to heal me, to move through me, which is another way of talking about the miracle. That's what the miracle is. It's
Right.
a healing moving through us. And now I'm suffused with this compassion, this loving kindness, and it's coming through me towards this other person who may even get more irritable or annoyed in the face of this kind of light-filled patience that can be infuriating to the ego. So what happens over there may not seem reflective of what's happening in here, and that's okay.
Yeah, because I've been thinking about it instead of, I think I used to try to just, I've always was kind of taught to be nice, but then I realized it says, it's not the behavior, it's really what's in your mind. So I've just been really conscious of, am I really feeling loving and kind, or am I just acting that way?
Yeah, it's a really, really useful question, and to check ourselves with spirit rather than with ourselves, and not have to know how to do that, but just I just like to call out the name, like Jesus, Holy Spirit. I'm checking myself. I don't know how to do it, but I trust you more than ever, or sometimes it's like I don't trust you, but I'm still willing to do the practice. I try to keep it very real because I really know that sincerity is the only way to open.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Doreen.
My question is about something you just mentioned, Amy. You were talking about the battlefield, and I was wondering if being above the battlefield also goes in stages, that we first are, let's say, 1 meter above the battlefield, and then 10 meters, and then so far above the battlefield that then God can, reach our hand and lift us up in heaven. What is your understanding about that?
I think for the most part, it's incremental, little by little.
Incremental. Yeah.
However, people have big experiences, or they have striking experiences, dynamic experiences that break through, and often then there's a sense of loss when the ego takes over, which says, oh, I need to remain there. And how do I recapture that experience? And there's no need for that. Even if, I describe myself as an incher. I feel like I've inched along in my spiritual unfolding. Occasionally I realize, oh, that was quite an event, that particular thing, or that was quite a coincidence, like with this lesson 126. Like, yeah, that's pretty, that's a huge volume in Audible. And I haven't been in there for quite a while looking at the workbook. And then I go back in there and it's on 126. That is kind of a big deal, but it doesn't feel so disorienting that it frightens me. So would we call that an incher, or would we call that more of an event? It depends. It's very customized, and it's as much as any of us can tolerate. Thank you for the question. Yeah. Okay, so if we come back here and we're honest with ourselves and we realize, oh, this is the way forgiveness operates in the world. And, oh, but actually there was that time that I felt so unconditionally loving towards that person. And even though they did this thing that, I'm not going to change my mind that it was hurtful, but I just don't feel a lingering resentment anymore. Somehow I feel cleared. That can happen. That happens. Or occasionally I've known somebody who I just couldn't get angry at, or I couldn't remain angry with. And it was somewhat confusing and very delightful feeling to just not be able to be mad at somebody who maybe borrowed money from me and never paid it back. And I knew I should be mad and I should hold them accountable, but it just this wasn't happening. That's an interesting experience too, because ego says, oh, Amy, you're being so codependent and you can't let that go, but there's a greater freedom in feeling like, yeah, that's not important. Nope, not going to pay attention to that. So this is how the Course is supporting us in the unexpected. It says, some things can feel disturbing. How do we discern between what we might call in psychology a healthy ego, where we can set boundaries with people and not be taken advantage of, and what A Course in Miracles is saying, which is, if your brother asks you to do something outrageous, as long as it doesn't hurt you or him, go ahead and do it. The way that I've handled situations like that is to be forthright with the person. So I might say to that person, I believe I should be angry with you about borrowing that money and you never paying it back. But the truth is, I just can't work it up. I can't work up the anger. But don't think that means that I condone, you being dishonest in that way, or I'm on to you, and it's safe for you to talk to me about this. We can talk about it. And that's gone quite well, actually. There are people you cannot even say that to. But you'll know who they are. You give it a try and they're just unavailable. They gaslight you. They deny everything. They turn it around and tell you you're too sensitive, or, you can start to identify who's available. Yeah. I'm just smiling because this particular person taught me how to play chess. And he was sort of a bad guy in certain ways. And I just told him that I needed to play Guru Mai's tambura while we were playing chess, because I knew he might cheat at chess. And it was this sound, sort of like the Om. It's a very penetrating sound. It just drones. So I just set us at this very high vibration of honesty and truth. And he agreed to that. And then I beat him at chess. You never know what's going to happen. Okay, Taylor.
Hi. So that was interesting because I feel like I just had a moment of clarity and forgiveness for myself because I realized based on what was just discussed that I've generally remained steadfastly true to myself throughout life with not having a poker face and largely not capable of or willing to disguise or hide what I actually think and feel about people, situations, entities, whatever. And I've always struggled with a lot of shame about that because people have told me, you're too sensitive and you're rude and you're offensive and lots of adjectives. And I waver back and forth between being like, hell yeah, that's absolutely correct. And what is wrong with me? Why can't I just go out in the world and play pretty with all of the people, but I've really it's been in my face, probably going on a month now, and I don't want it. I don't want these feelings. I don't want these experiences of these people and situations. And what I'm noticing is as long as I don't have to interact with them and they're not, in my realm, sorry, I'm sweating from walking a dog. Then I'm able to, I think this might be making me sweat a little bit too, because it's hard to talk about. Sorry.
No, it's good for you to be transparent. Appreciate it.
It just feels really ugly, even when I'm by myself. So there has to be some element of reality to it. Because even when I'm by myself, I feel ugly having these thoughts and attitudes towards, I feel antisocial, to be honest. And when I don't have to see these people or interact with them or interface with them or, listen to them, it's like out of mind, out of sight, out of mind with me. It really is. But the minute, then I can get to this place of like, oh yeah, it's all right. People are just people. The world is just being the world. This is what it's supposed to be. And even the Course says that. But the minute they are injected back into my world, then it starts up again. The feelings and the thoughts. And I'm just tired. I'm tired of it. I wish I could have, this component, whatever it is in my physical brain, surgically removed so that I just couldn't remember them, or I'm just not capable of feeling this towards them or anyone else anymore. I'm exhausted with it. So there's been a lot of prayer, like really lately, I just look up and I'm like, help. I just say help because I don't even have words for it anymore. All I can say is I don't want this. I'm sick of myself. I don't know if it's like me totally seeing the ego for what it is. And I can see the mechanisms of the ego behind it too, but that's not helping it. It's not making it, it's not giving me relief. It's not making, some path for me to undo it or disable it. I just can see like, wow, the ego really needs to live off of hatred and self-importance and offense and guilt and all of these ego feeling. I see it so clearly. I never really saw that before. And it's interesting and sometimes it's amusing, but I'm just sick of it. I really am. Can you speak to any of this?
Yeah.
It feels like I'm mentally ill. It really does. But I don't know. Help.
Yeah. Yeah. So I endorse your prayer, just looking up and saying help. I've done that many times. I'm all for it. Make sure you're not looking up at the ego god and that you're turning to, your Course in Miracles guide. I would say you're in very good company. What you're describing has probably been felt by everybody here. Would anyone like to raise their hand if you've ever felt that way? You're in very good company. Yeah. And of course you're uprooting that if you did not encounter these people and you thought that you were peaceful, that would not serve you. So, now more than ever, it's clear to you that as long as these people would trigger that response in you, that in that moment, you are taking guidance from the ego, that you've defaulted to ego guidance, as we all do. And really, I think the first step of the forgiveness practice is acknowledging that all the time. It's like, oh, what Jesus is pointing out to me in the Course is so true. Just like you said, Taylor, that the ego just thrives on hatred and conflict, and but it'll thrive on anything. It could thrive on you
Yes.
being madly in love, and now it's just you and that person against the world. And it can thrive on anything that will just keep you engaged in the importance of a separate self. So even though it seems to you like you're not getting any relief, I would simply assure you that using this practice is getting you somewhere. And as you said, you're feeling miserable and even mentally ill, but you are seeing that you understand the ego, the way it operates more than ever.
Yeah.
So you are longing for some relief, and the feeling is, I don't want this anymore.
I want the happy dream.
Yeah. And then nothing wrong with that. Just in this moment, what's happening in your body in this moment? If you do a quick scan, what location in your body stands out right now?
My left, left lower abdominal quarter.
Okay. And what is the sensation there? Is it a pressure or like a sharpness?
No, it's a collapse that causes some other compensation throughout my back and shoulders, and can even go into my neck, and has caused my muscle go. That hasn't happened in a while, but it starts with this collapse. I have some sort of collapse in the lower. I just lean over, and I don't know why. I've worked my abs and done the physical stuff, yoga and physical therapy, and I have a TENS unit and all of these things, and S hook, and I pull on it, but I still keep collapsing.
Okay, so and this collapse is in the, did you say lower left abdominal area?
Quadrant, yeah.
Okay, so in this moment, could you allow that collapse to collapse rather than not collapsing? Can you go into a movement that surrenders to collapse?
Yeah, because it wants to do that automatically all the time anyway, and so I have all these ways of trying to counteract it. But that's naturally what I do.
To get along in the world, you would need to counteract. But in this moment, can you collapse?
Yeah, it's collapsed.
Okay. And has your posture shifted? I don't see any difference, but
Yeah, I you can't really see it, but I feel it and the effects of it.
Okay. So you feel the effects of allowing the collapse, is that right?
Yes.
And tell me the effect. Is there any relief in that?
It makes me hold my breath so I don't breathe freely. I don't know the word for it. It feels like it creates a knot in my left shoulder.
Yes, things ripple through for sure. Everything is connected. So you said that when you give into the collapse that you hold your breath. Is that the first thing you said?
Yes, it alters my breathing.
Okay. And can you just allow the altered breathing just for now?
Yeah.
Okay. So now you've moved into the collapse. You're not fighting it. And the breathing is altered. Is there a thought in your head?
Just that I'm crooked.
Let's stay with that. I'm crooked. Mhm.
I'm twisted and bent.
Beautiful.
I'm not upright.
Excellent, Taylor. You're crooked, you're twisted, you're bent, you're not upright. That's all. We're not trying to make sense of it. We're just bringing into the light this process, which is within you and from which you're suffering. We're just bringing it out. We're going with it instead of fighting it, pushing through.
I'm
Yeah.
imbalanced.
Mm-hmm.
And people are leaving the conversation because I'm imbalanced and I'm affecting them. That's
Yes.
actually what is going through my head.
Good. Thank you so much for saying that. Who wouldn't think that? Although I'm pretty sure that the same people have to leave every week around this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My higher self says that, but that's what's generating.
Yeah, but Taylor, it's so good that you said that. That's hard to say. And it's exposing the ego. You're exposing the ego, not just for yourself, but for all of us vicariously. It increases our courage when you're courageous. And sometimes, a person is told that's very courageous of you, and people are sending you loving hearts. And, we don't always feel courageous. I know when I've exposed myself similarly as you're doing now, Taylor, that people would say that's so brave. And I would say, I'm just desperate. I'm on my knees. I'm desperate. So, we're not looking to make anything happen. And you can certainly talk to me afterwards, in private. But I encourage everybody to some extent to allow this sort of thing to come up and to notice where you're holding. Oh, I'm holding against this collapse. And then can we find a supportive person who's not afraid of our collapse to be with us while we finally allow the collapse? Because without the collapse, you're going to have all of the compensations, and eventually you are going to collapse one way or another. If we don't implode, we explode. Something always happens. And then if tears come, that's very cleansing, very helpful. Very good. Yeah. Yeah. We all feel like this sometimes. Yeah. Should we leave it here, Taylor, or do you want to stay with it?
I can stay with it. I just don't want to hog the stage if someone else needs to share.
Yeah, yeah. We all feel like that too. It's very understandable, but I think we're all with you. You're getting prayer hands.
Thank you.
And hearts.
Thank you.
So now tears came. Do you see that, everybody? How one thing led to another? And with the tears, is there some relief?
Yeah.
Okay. So in that sense, you're working beautifully. that just taking a little direction from me, just moving through this, finding the location of something, finding out I've been resisting this and it's acting out all over my body, being allowed to go into a sensation, finding out there are thoughts that come with this sensation, clearly identifying the sensation is painful, that's ego. The thoughts are mean, those are ego. That's exposing, putting things in the light. Being witnessed lovingly, very powerful. Very powerful. You're demonstrating all that I give is given to myself. You're giving it to us. We benefit from the exposure. And then you're actually benefiting from the process. In the manual, the development of trust talks about the 6 stages, a period of unsettling, a period of whatever those 6 are. And one of them says, there's a period of rest. One of them says, you haven't come as far as you think. Sometimes we feel like, I get it. I've come a long way. I have way more than a tiny willingness. And it's not to discourage us. It's just to keep us on track. So I think this is actually a big opening for you, Taylor, to hit, this point in your path where in some ways things have been going so well for you. And then you're strong enough, you're healed enough to bump into, some core issue that blocks the awareness of love's presence. And then we melt it away. So I'm just going to let you be with this, and please reach out to me afterwards if you'd like to.
Thank you to everyone. Thank you. I'm not looking at anyone else. I'm just trying to, thank you.
Yeah. I don't always maintain attunement because I'm also, checking the room. So receiving messages. So forgive me for that. If sometimes I'm grinning at you when you're crying. So I'd like to get back to Doreen.
Taylor, when I was listening to you, what came to mind is the process of undoing the ego is something that we all have been running away from for so many lifetimes. And finally, we have the courage to do it. And I finally have the courage during this lifetime to do that. And of course, there is a reason why we have been running away from that for so long. Of course, so long is figuratively speaking because there is no time, but you know what I mean. Because it's very uncomfortable and painful, and for me as well, the whole process of undoing the ego. And the ego is so vicious, but we're not alone. And I keep on saying that to myself. We are mighty companions for each other. So I would like to encourage you with that.
Thank you, Doreen. Yeah, Jesus tells us in the Course that there's no need for us to experience the undoing as painful, but for the most part, we all do. We all do. It feels like our skin is being torn off. It just feels like we're gutted. It's just frightening, and we're just hanging on by the skin of our teeth and our nails. And even when we don't want to, there's still some of that kicking up. And it is so encouraging to have each other and see that we all go through it. We all go through it, and we can go through it at whatever is the right pace for us in our own right time. We are awakening, and that is guaranteed. The ego says, well, hurry it up already. It's the ego says that. It's the ego that's holding us back. Yeah. Well, maybe we can pick up on lesson 126 next week and see it through and get to do the beautiful meditation there and just see what comes up. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. It's just the best.